Imagine for a second that you could take just a giant pink eraser to your monthly budget.
Oh, I would love that.
Right. But I don't mean just, trimming the edges. Not like canceling a streaming service or skipping your morning coffee.
Yeah, the usual advice.
Exactly. I'm talking about erasing massive five-figure chunks of your annual overhead.
Wow. Okay.
And as you're swiping this eraser across the page, instead of having to downsize your life to make the math work, you magically upgrade your house, you get your kids into a top-tier school district, and a lump sum of like $300,000 in equity just drops right into your bank account.
I mean, honestly, it sounds like a late-night infomercial pitch.
It totally does.
Because we are so conditioned to believe that in real estate, you get exactly what you pay for. And if you want to pay less, well, you inherently have to settle for less.
Right. The ultimate trade-off.
Yeah.
But for this deep dive today, we are looking at a stack of sources that completely flip that idea on its head.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
We're looking at a really eye-opening 2026 market report and a series of real estate analyses by Cara Conde. She co-founded Circle 8 LLC with her husband, Robert Lappin. And the mission of our deep dive today is to explore this massive 2026 trend she calls suburban arbitrage.
Suburban arbitrage. It's such a great term.
It is. We're going to look at how families are mathematically hacking their cost of living, trading these elite zip codes for exact lifestyle matches in lower tax states, and, pocketing hundreds of thousands of dollars in the process.
Which is life-changing money.
Okay, so let's unpack this for you guys listening, because the specific migration pattern highlighted in this report is fascinating. Families are actually packing up and leaving historically prestigious, really high-cost suburbs, specifically places like Birmingham, Michigan.
Right.
And they're heading straight for emerging Midwestern hubs. And Fishers, Indiana is really emerging as the top destination here.
And we aren't just relying on anecdotal evidence for this either.
No, the data is solid.
Yeah, the report cites 2025 and 2026 census data, as well as Redfin migration reports, showing a very steady, very measurable outflow from Oakland County in Michigan down toward the Indianapolis metro area.
A really defined geographic shift.
Exactly. It's not just a few families here and there.
But here's my initial pushback when I was reading through this. I know Birmingham, Michigan.
It's beautiful.
It really is. It is the quintessential, prestigious Northwest Detroit suburb. It's famous for these gorgeous, mature tree-lined streets, incredible luxury homes, excellent schools. It has a real reputation for excellence. So why leave?
Well, that's the big question.
There's this concept in the digital nomad world called geo-arbitrage.
Oh, right, where you move to a cheaper country.
Exactly. It's when a tech worker keeps their high San Francisco salary,
Right.
but moves to a beach in Bali so their dollars stretch like 10 times further. This feels like the exact same concept, but applied to domestic suburban families.
That's a really good way to look at it.
Why pay an absolute premium just to have a Michigan zip code on your mail if you don't have to?
What's fascinating here is that this migration is fundamentally not about downsizing.
Which is usually what you think of, right?
Right. When we think of moving to save money, we usually picture selling the big family home and moving into a smaller townhouse. Or, moving way further out into the country where the commute is just brutal.
Yeah, an hour each way.
Exactly. But suburban arbitrage is a strategic lateral lifestyle move. These families are keeping, or in many cases actually upgrading, their standard of living while simultaneously executing a drastic reduction in their financial overhead.
But let's be real for a second. People do not uproot their entire lives, pull their kids out of soccer, and pack up moving trucks for a few extra bucks a month.
No, absolutely not. The friction of moving is too high.
Right. To make a move like that, the financial disparity between these two locations has to be absolutely staggering. And Conde's report breaks down this side-by-side comparison that honestly made me do a double take.
The math is highly compelling. Let's look at the entry cost first.
Okay, lay it on me.
The report details that buyers moving from Birmingham to Fishers are looking at a purchase price that is between $100,000 and $300,000 lower for a comparable home.
Just boom. Day one.
Exactly. That is an immediate, massive equity unlock just on the purchase alone.
And it gets better or worse, depending on which state you currently live in, I guess. Let's talk about the property taxes.
Oh, the taxes are the crazy part.
If you own a nice home in Birmingham, your property taxes are running anywhere from $12,000 to $18,000 or more every single year.
That is wild.
Let that sink in for a second if you're listening. That is $1,000 to $1,500 a month just in taxes.
It's like a second mortgage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Conde's report highlights a comparable home in Fishers, where the annual taxes are around $5,500.
Yeah.
You are saving between $6,000 and $12,000 a year, minimum.
And we have to stack the income tax on top of that.
Oh, right, I forgot about the income tax.
Yeah, Michigan has a flat income tax rate of 4.25%, but Indiana's effective flat rate for 2026 is 2.95%.
That's a noticeable drop.
It really is. So you are keeping roughly 1.3% more of your income right off the top.
Okay, pause right there, because I always wonder about the mechanics behind those numbers. Why is Indiana able to charge so much less in taxes? Are they just like not paving the roads?
No, they definitely pave the roads. It comes down to structural state economics.
Okay, what does that mean?
Indiana leans heavily on a broader sales tax and very business-friendly corporate structures, which generates a massive commercial tax base.
Ah, so the businesses are carrying the weight.
Exactly. Because the commercial sector is pulling so much weight in the state's revenue, the state can afford to strictly cap residential property taxes.
Wait, really? A hard cap?
Yes. They literally have a constitutional cap on property taxes for primary residences at 1% of the home's assessed value.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
It is. So as a homeowner, you are structurally shielded from runaway tax hikes.
That peace of mind alone is worth so much.
Right. And when you combine that housing savings, the tax savings, and the fact that the overall cost of living in Indiana is 14 to 18% lower than in Birmingham.
And that covers things like insurance, utilities, and daily expenses. Right, okay.
Exactly. When you add all that up, the financial engine of this move becomes undeniable.
To make this super concrete for you listening, Conde curated a very specific example in the report. She highlights a residence in Fishers built in 2018.
It's a great example.
It's a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom home, 4,398 square feet of finished living space, sitting on a nearly half-acre lot in a highly desirable sidewalk-lined neighborhood.
Sounds lovely.
The price, $700,000.
Which is a lot of money, but...
But wait, the report notes that to get that exact same footprint and finish in Birmingham, you're looking at $850,000, easily.
So you sell a Birmingham house, step into the Fishers house, and boom.
You're up $150,000 instantly. But naturally, when you see a price disparity that large, a red flag goes up.
Of course.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because my immediate thought, and I'm sure you at home are thinking this too, is, okay, the houses are way cheaper, the taxes are slashed, aren't you sacrificing your kids' education?
It's the first thing parents worry about.
Schools are usually the #1 driver of suburban property values. If you are paying half the taxes, aren't you getting half the school?
It is the most logical assumption to make, but the data in the source material directly refutes it.
I was so surprised by this.
Yeah, the school district in Fishers is Hamilton Southeastern Schools, and according to the niche 2026 school rankings cited in the report, this district consistently ranks among the absolute best in the entire state of Indiana.
We're talking about outstanding academics, right?
Yes, outstanding academics, championship-level athletics, award-winning arts programs, and exceptional college placement rates. They are achieving what the report calls education parity.
I love translating that corporate phrase, education parity.
What does it mean to you?
What it actually means is that these migrating families are essentially buying a Ferrari education on a Honda Civic property tax budget.
Huh. That is perfectly said.
It is the holy grail for parents.
Huh.
But, spreadsheets and school rankings don't make a home. You have to actually live there.
Exactly, day in and day out.
And honestly, before reading this, if you had asked me to picture Fishers, Indiana, I would have pictured cornfields and a gas station.
Honestly, a lot of people probably do.
But I started looking at the maps and the data in this report, and it is a wildly developed area.
That's a common misconception about the Midwest. Beyond the numbers, Fishers is characterized as one of America's fastest-growing and most desirable cities.
So it's not just a sleepy little town.
No, not at all. It isn't just a sleepy bedroom community. It has its own distinct, vibrant identity. The report describes a blend of modern convenience and small-town charm, featuring hundreds of acres of beautifully maintained parks, trails, and highly walkable neighborhoods.
And we absolutely cannot ignore the recreational anchor of the area. Fishers is home to the Grand Park Sports Campus.
Oh, that place is incredible.
We'll call it the sports capital of the Midwest. I was looking at the satellite view of this place. It is massive, over 400 acres, 26 different baseball and softball diamonds, 31 multi-purpose fields.
It's basically a city in itself.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
the kind of world-class recreation facility that defines a community's entire weekend culture. Plus, you were only 20 to 30 minutes away from downtown Indianapolis.
Which is a very manageable drive.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you get that quiet, low-crime, safe community feel, but you still have big city access for dining, arts, and professional sports right down the road.
Which brings us to a concept Cara Conde terms the Fishers Freedom Multiplier.
That is a great phrase. How does that multiplier actually work mechanically?
It captures the compounding effect of this arbitrage. You have the immediate equity unlock, let's say $200,000 you didn't have to spend on the house. Then you have the annual recurring savings, $10,000 a year in property taxes, plus the income tax savings, plus the 14 to 18% reduction in daily living expenses.
Just keep stacking up.
Exactly. This creates a powerful, ongoing financial engine. If you invest that difference, the compound interest over 10 years completely alters a family's financial trajectory.
So what does this all mean for the families actually doing it? It means that extra cash flow isn't just theoretical. It goes straight into funding College 529 plans so the kids graduate debt-free.
Which is huge these days.
Huge. It funds dream family vacations that used to feel out of reach. It allows families to accelerate their retirement timelines by years, if not decades.
It really changes everything.
It fundamentally shifts the stress level of the household. It makes me think that the very definition of prestige is changing in 2026.
How do you mean?
Well, it used to be all about the historic brand name of the town you lived in. You paid a premium for the label. But now, prestige is shifting toward sustainable, joyful living. Having a gorgeous house is great, but having a gorgeous house and zero financial anxiety, that's the new status symbol.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a profound realization. In a world characterized by inflation and persistently high living costs, true luxury in 2026 is financial freedom.
Absolutely.
And what the suburban arbitrage trend proves is that you can achieve that financial freedom without having to sacrifice community safety, high-end amenities, or elite education.
Okay, so the math works, the schools are a match, the lifestyle sounds incredible. But here is the massive roadblock I kept hitting while reading.
Oh, what's that?
If Fishers is such a utopian financial jackpot, it has to be absolutely swamped with out-of-state buyers, right?
It is definitely seeing a massive influx, yes.
So how do you actually secure one of these homes without getting destroyed in a brutal public bidding war where you end up overpaying and ruining the arbitrage math in the first place?
That is precisely the bottleneck, and it's why the tactics used by buyers are evolving. The source material outlines how Cara Conde approaches this.
Okay.
She operates as what the industry calls an off-market specialist in greater Indianapolis.
Off-market. Okay, I've heard this term.
Yeah, it's becoming more common.
I usually think of it like having a VIP backstage pass to a sold-out stadium concert. You aren't out in the parking lot fighting with the general admission crowd, hoping to get a glimpse of the stage. You are quietly, calmly being ushered through the side door.
I like that analogy.
But how does that actually work mechanically? Because you can't just invent houses to sell. If a house isn't listed, how do you buy it?
It's a great question, and your analogy is close, but let's push it a bit further. It's not just walking through a side door. It's the agent knowing the band manager personally and buying the ticket before the concert is even announced to the public.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mechanically, an off-market strategy involves heavy data analysis. An agent like Conde looks at tax records, deed histories, and neighborhood demographics to identify homeowners who might be highly motivated to sell.
Like who?
Say, an empty nester sitting on a lot of equity whose kids just graduated, but who haven't wanted to deal with the public hassle of open houses and staging.
Right, because selling a house the normal way is a nightmare.
Exactly. So the agent approaches them privately with a fully vetted buyer from out of state. It bypasses the public market frenzy entirely.
But wait, this raises an important question, and I'm pushing back hard on this.
Go for it.
If a house is never publicly listed, if there isn't an open market of buyers driving the price to its natural limit, how do you as the buyer know you are actually getting a good deal?
That's a very fair point.
How do you know the seller isn't artificially inflating the price because they know you're coming from out of state with deep pockets? Exclusive access usually means you pay a premium.
A very valid concern, and if done poorly, that is exactly what happens.
Right.
But the source highlights that an effective off-market strategy requires a rigorous, data-driven approach to ensure properties are what the report calls market-aligned.
Market-aligned, okay.
To prevent price gouging, agents utilize incredibly granular data sourced from Zillow, Redfin, the Tax Foundation, and county assessor records for both the origin county, like Oakland, and the destination county, Hamilton.
They really dig into the numbers.
They do. They run comparative market analyses that look at price per square foot trends over the last 30 days, not just the last year.
So it's super current.
Exactly. This rigorous analysis ensures that even though the transaction is private, the pricing reflects true current market value, guaranteeing that the buyer actually captures the financial arbitrage they came for.
Okay, that makes sense. It's not a blind purchase. It's a heavily researched private transaction.
Exactly.
Now, this naturally leads to another big question. We are talking about all these families migrating, setting up these perfect suburban lives. But a town can't survive just on incoming families looking for cheap taxes. Where do they work? Where are they shopping? Where is the infrastructure? When I dug into the wider body of published sources, provided here this massive list of related articles and reports authored by Cara Conde, I realized something wild.
What did you find?
This residential arbitrage is just one single piece of a much, much larger economic puzzle playing out in central Indiana in 2026.
Exactly. The residential boom in Fishers and surrounding affluent suburbs like Westfield, Geist, Carmel, Zionsville, Avon, and Noblesville is not happening in a vacuum.
They need an economy to support them.
A bedroom community cannot sustain this level of growth and property value purely on residential demand. It has to be anchored by a thriving commercial economy.
Right.
The sources indicate Conde has projected plans to close $25 million in commercial volume in 2026 alone, which gives us a fantastic window into the macroeconomics of this region.
And the sheer variety of the commercial mechanisms driving this is mind-blowing. The same person who is quietly negotiating a luxury tree-lined four-bedroom home for a family from Detroit is also publishing deep dives on highly technical commercial maneuvers.
Yeah, she wears a lot of hats.
For instance, she writes extensively about 1031 exchanges. And before we gloss over that, what exactly is a 1031 exchange?
It's a great tool.
I hear that thrown around by real estate guys all the time, but I rarely hear it explained.
It sounds like dense tax code jargon, but it's a brilliant mechanism. Section 131 of the IRS tax code allows an investor to sell a property and completely defer paying capital gains taxes.
Wait, completely defer?
Completely defer, yes. If they take the profits and immediately roll them into a new like-kind property.
Okay, give me an example.
So imagine an investor sells a massive industrial warehouse in Michigan. Instead of losing 20% or more of their profit to taxes, they use a 1031 exchange to buy an even bigger warehouse in Plainfield, Indiana.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly smart.
It encourages continuous reinvestment, and it is a massive driver of capital flowing out of high-tax states and pouring directly into the Indiana commercial sector.
Okay, that is fascinating. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill, just gathering capital without the IRS melting it away.
That's a perfect visual.
The reports also show she's deeply involved in analyzing cap rates and internal rates of return, or IRR, for these massive commercial spaces.
Yes, and those two metrics are the lifeblood of commercial real estate.
I know they're important, but break them down for us.
Sure. A cap rate, or capitalization rate, essentially tells an investor what their annual percentage return would be if they bought a property entirely in cash.
Oh, okay, so it's just the pure yield.
Exactly. It measures the pure yield of the asset. The internal rate of return, or IRR, goes a step further and calculates the total profitability of an investment over time, factoring in the time value of money.
So the fact that an agent is utilizing these advanced metrics shows how sophisticated the greater Indianapolis market has become.
Definitely. It's attracting serious institutional capital.
And you can see that capital manifesting in the physical landscape. She's tracking the boom in early education real estate and senior living facilities, which makes perfect sense. You need preschools for the new families and senior care for the grandparents they bring with them.
It's a full generational shift.
Yeah. She's writing guides on utilizing SBA 504 loans, which help small businesses buy long-term fixed assets like machinery or real estate to grow.
Mm-hmm.
She's even detailing HUD 221-0B4 loans. I had to look that one up. It's a government-backed loan specifically used for building or substantially rehabilitating multifamily rental housing, including single-room occupancy housing. It is a massive, sprawling portfolio of development.
It is, and it provides crucial context for the residential trend.
How so?
The commercial and industrial expansion, the warehouses in Plainfield, the new retail centers, the corporate headquarters moving into Fishers is actively fueling the residential boom.
It's drawing people in.
Exactly. And in a perfect feedback loop, the influx of wealthy, highly educated residents from places like Birmingham is providing the talent pool and consumer base that fuels the commercial sector.
Amazing how that works.
Indiana is aggressively positioning itself as a central hub for development.
It's a complete self-sustaining economic ecosystem. The jobs, the infrastructure, and the families are all arriving at the same time, feeding off each other.
Right.
It makes you realize that when you execute a suburban arbitrage move to Fishers, you aren't just buying a cheaper house. You are buying into a regional economy that is essentially hitting its golden age.
Precisely. It entirely mitigates the risk of the relocation. You aren't moving to a stagnant town that just happens to have cheap housing.
Right.
You are moving into an expanding economic powerhouse that currently has a lower cost of entry than the legacy markets on the coast or in the upper Midwest.
So to pull all of these threads together as we wrap up our deep dive today,
It's been quite the journey.
we've looked at the hard data behind the 2026 suburban arbitrage trend. We've explored the mechanics of how families are utilizing highly targeted, data-driven off-market strategies to execute a brilliant financial maneuver.
Trading prestige for peace of mind.
Exactly. They are trading the high-tax legacy prestige of places like Birmingham, Michigan for what Conde calls the Fishers Freedom Jackpot. They are unlocking hundreds of thousands in immediate equity, slashing their annual tax burden, securing Ferrari-level education on a Honda Civic budget, and stepping into a lower-stress, highly amenitized lifestyle that is backed by a booming commercial economy.
It is a profound shift in how families approach wealth preservation and quality of life.
It really is.
The mathematics of the move, combined with the lifestyle upgrades, simply overwhelm the traditional attachment to a specific geographic brand name.
And that brings the focus right back to you listening to this. Think about your own zip code for a minute. Think about your monthly overhead, your property taxes, your cost of living.
It's worth making a hard look at.
Are you paying a massive, stressful premium just for the historic prestige of your town's name? Because the data suggests that an equivalent Fishers, a vibrant, safe, top-tier community, might be out there right now, offering you the exact same or better lifestyle for half the monthly cost.
It is fundamentally a question of optimization. Are you getting the highest possible return in quality of life for the capital you are expending?
Exactly. And it leaves us with one final lingering thought to mull over.
What's that?
We talked at the beginning about taking an eraser to your financial stress, but what happens to the towns left behind?
Oh, that's a tough question.
If this suburban arbitrage trend continues to accelerate, if it continues to systematically drain the wealth, the equity, and the top-tier, high-income taxpayers out of historically prestigious legacy suburbs across the entire country, what happens to those legacy towns in the next decade?
It's a serious concern.
Will they face an insurmountable financial crisis as their tax base evaporates, or will they be forced to radically reinvent their tax structures and their value propositions to somehow compete with these emerging high-value Midwestern hubs?
Only time will tell.
We'll leave you to ponder that one. Until next time.